if you don't show yourself right now, I'm gonna have you arrested for trespassing.
Hey, jeez, calm down, lady. Here I come! Hi, I'm Casper!
Hey Ghost Heads, it's Devin from Channeling Spirits. Ghostbusters debuted in June 1984. 2 years later, an animated series, The Real Ghostbusters, kept interest alive in the franchise and helped spawn a sequel film in 1989. The cartoon sputtered to a stop in 1991. Rumors of a third Ghostbusters movie swirled, but nothing materialized. Then in 1995, more than 10 years after the first film, Ray Stantz put the proton pack back on. Sort of.
Who you gonna call? Someone else.
Dan Aykroyd cameoed in Casper, another ghostly comedy clad in the original props. He's wearing the Spangler Hero Pack, with its broken acrylic tube and prominent paint scratch on the motherboard. Given the font on the name tag, the jumpsuit looks like the same one from the first film. Casper featured one of the 4 Busters in an actual pack, which begs the question, does Casper exist in the same universe as Ghostbusters? Aykroyd's appearance was one of the many celebrities that popped up in the film. It also showcased Don Novello's father Guido Sarducci, famous for his SNL skits, Clint Eastwood, Rodney Dangerfield, Mel Gibson, and John Cassier reprising his role as the voice of the Crypt Keeper. So is Dan Aykroyd merely one of the many stars that made an appearance, or is there a deeper connection between Ghostbusters and Casper? Believe it or not, the two franchises are more entwined than you might imagine.
A ghost did it. A ghost, like Casper. Casper the Friendly Ghost, except not a friendly ghost, a murderous ghost.
Casper was originally intended to be a children's book, conceptualized by Seymour Raitt and illustrated by Joe Oriolo. With little interest, the idea was never published, and Oriolo sold off the rights to Famous Studios when Raitt was serving in World War II. Casper's first appearance was in 1945 with the aptly named short, The Friendly Ghost. More cartoons would follow, but the next one wouldn't be released for 3 years. In it, we see Casper reading by an unmarked grave, possibly his own. In 1951's Taboo or Not Taboo, we see a similar tomb, this time engraved with Casper's name. Yeah. From very early on, Casper was intended to be the ghost of a dead kid.
What's it like to die?
How about a little music?
Casper's parents were both shown to be ghosts in the cartoons, but rarely appeared. St. John Publications began printing Casper comic books in 1950 and introduced the cantankerous Uncle Abernathy early in the run. However, the character wouldn't last long because 2 years later, Harvey Comics took over producing Casper comics, and in 1959 they purchased the character outright. Casper would frequently live with other ghosts, with one of the earliest examples of the ghostly trio being in issue 10. The group is actually a quartet, led by a spectral sergeant, readying them for a raid on an orphanage. Casper's roommates would fluctuate from 2 to 3, but it's never mentioned that he is related to them. Issue 22 would feature Casper in The Sick Spook, where he is given mean pills by the trio. After tarring and feathering them, Casper reveals to the audience that he never took the pills. This story would be adapted into the cartoon Fright from Wrong, which marked the first on-screen appearance of the ghostly trio. At this point, members of the trio were still unnamed, but a larger ghost clearly commanded the other two.
We must make Casper just as mean as we are.
Issue 25 featured the first hint at their names. While bickering, two ghosts call each other Skinny and Fatso, but those appear to be insults rather than their actual names. Still, the concept stuck, and they were finally named Eco, Stretcho, and Fatso. The names wouldn't remain permanent. In 1972, the ghostly trio got their own spin-off comic with new names: Fatso, Fusso, and Lazo. So what does the ghostly trio have to do with Ghostbusters?
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
We're getting there. When Dan Aykroyd first conceived of a supernatural comedy, several ideas remained into the final film. In making Ghostbusters, director Ivan Reitman explained, Dan had come up with that concept and had worked out the equipment and the car and all that sort of thing. He had even thought of the basic idea for the Ghostbusters logo, the little ghost inside the stop sign. That was one of the few things in the original draft that I actually laughed at. Concept art for the logo showed two ideas that looked suspiciously like Casper. It was associate producer Michael Gross that finalized the icon.
And then I think Mike Gross redesigned a little bit the shape of the ghost. But the basic idea was always...
Well, we had to stay away from Casper, I remember. Right. It was a big problem.
The No Ghost logo, or Moogly, developed into its quintessential design. Despite avoiding Casper, Harvey Cartoons wasn't pleased. After the film's release, Harvey sued Columbia Pictures over copyright infringement. They sought $50 million and that all prints of Ghostbusters be destroyed.
They'll never take us alive.
All right, let's get on with it.
According to Harvey, the Moogly bore a striking appearance to their character, Fatso. Both are simple line drawings with a knotted forehead and jowly cheeks. Columbia Pictures argued that their ghost is comprised of only 5 elements: a billowy top-knotted contour, eyes, nose, mouth, and hands. By Harvey's own admission, there is no similarity of the latter 4 elements to the corresponding features of Fatso. They showed that other comic book publications, like Homer the Happy Ghost, Melvin the Mixed Up Ghost, Okie Dokes, as well as an issue of Walt Disney's Donald Duck featuring one of his nephews as a ghost, all showed similar depictions of specters, which had the same generic features. However, the nail in the coffin for Harvey was their copyright had lapsed. By January of 1984, all copyright registrations for issues of Casper comics predating 1956 had expired. Fatso had entered the public domain, and the alleged similarities pertained only to non-copyrightable elements of Harvey's work.
All right! Understand the order? Keys dismissed! Hurry! Leave us the keys! Now do something!
Despite the lawsuit, Columbia would go on to approve Aykroyd's cameo in the 1995 film. So if Casper does take place in the Ghostbusters universe, when did it happen? Casper mentions the harvest moon, which is the full moon closest to the autumnal equinox.
It's just such a lovely night. I thought we'd have fun just eating under the harvest moon.
In 1995, the equinox was on September 23rd, and the harvest moon was full on September 9th. Given the Halloween decorations, this seems too early in the season to be correct. It's more likely Casper simply misspoke, referring to the October full moon as the harvest moon. When the film opens, the moon is a waxing gibbous, probably the night of October 4th, 1995. We see the chained gates of Whipstaff Manor in Friendship, Maine. Production designer Leslie Dilley drew heavily on the work of Antoni Gaudi for the mansion.
We knew we wanted something unusual because of, in the wake of all of our images of haunted houses, even as recent as the Addams Family, we wanted to come up with something interesting and different.
I suggested up front that maybe we should go for a house which is not the stereotype haunted house, which is usually Victorian, and offered up a different style of architecture. Maybe we're going for Art Nouveau, turn-of-the-century architecture, Gaudi-esque.
The design team was especially inspired by Gaudi's Casa Batlló, built in 1904. They took several aspects, like the dragon-scale roof, the organic shapes of the windows and balconies, the slanted angles in the hallway, and Cat's swirled ceiling is almost directly copied from the Nobel floor of Batlló.
So what? I guess they just don't make them like they used to, huh? No! Nobody ever made them like this. I mean, the architect was either a certified genius or an authentic wacko.
Gaudi's work came to prominence in the 1880s, and Art Nouveau was in vogue until about 1910. Whipstaff Manor was likely built in the late 19th or early 20th century. Whipstaff may have been the original owner's surname or simply the estate's name. Over the next 100 years, the property would change hands several times, with both the McFaddens and Crittendens owning it. We know it was already in a state of disrepair in 1945.
No, it was lousy 50 years ago. Now it's condemned.
By 1995, the Crittendens possessed it, with Kerrigan's father passing it on to her. While in New York, Kerrigan and her attorney, Paul Dibbs Plutzker, received the deed to Whipstaff on October 5th. Manhattan is about a 6-hour and 15-minute drive to the real-life Friendship, Maine, and they arrive that night.
What a dump.
The ghostly trio sends them running out of the mansion, which has a striking resemblance to a fleshy trio leaving the library. Given Dibbs is wearing 3 different suits, the following scenes probably take place on October 6th, 7th, and 8th. The first day they invite Father Guido Sarducci to exorcise the unholy trinity. The priest retreats, and on October 7th they call in a different exterminator. Kerrigan and Dibbs have a New York license plate, so it makes sense that they would have known about the Ghostbusters. Why would the boys drive all the way to Maine for a bust? As Ray explains in Ghostbusters Afterlife,
Oh, well, look, when we started, busting ghosts was a gas. I mean, economy was good, Reagan years. People believed in us. And things got slow, hauntings got thin. Venkman thought we did our job too well.
By 1995, business might have been so slow that they were willing to take a 6-hour drive to keep the lights on. Egon's journal, included in the HasLab Proton Pack, states that Venkman and Winston were the first to leave the business. Peter went back to World of the Psychic, and Winston began dipping his toe into finance. This explains why Ray was the only one to show up.
I think we better split up.
Good idea.
Yeah, we can do more damage that way.
But what about his mustache? Based on Dan Aykroyd's filming schedule, he probably grew it for another role he was filming. He cameoed as an OPP officer in Canadian Bacon, which was filmed in fall of 1993 and appeared without any facial hair. He then co-starred in Exit to Eden, which was filmed between September 23rd and December 5th, 1993. In it, he showcased his glorious stash as undercover officer Fred Lavery. Casper was shot afterwards, between January 27th and June 8th, 1994. As we of course know, Aykroyd kept his lip warmer. He would go on to play Sheriff Wyatt Hampton in Rainbow, which had a 9-week shoot starting on September 21st, 1994. At that point, Dan was still rocking the crumb catcher. Casper, which had a significant amount of CGI, probably didn't have the budget to digitally remove the caterpillar growing above his lip. Interestingly, Dan's cameo was in the February 8th, 1994 draft. Ray's broken barrel might explain why he left, but he was also outnumbered. The next day, October 8th, Kerrigan attempts to tear down Whipstaff.
Dibbs, I have huffed and puffed. Now I want to rip this place down.
Like the others, the construction crew flees. That night, Casper comes across a report on Dr. James Harvey, a paranormal therapist. Enamored by Harvey's cute daughter Kat, Casper travels to Kerrigan's room at the Wandermere Hotel. She sees the report and decides to bring the doctor to Maine. Considering the Harveys were in Santa Fe, New Mexico, they must have been driving all night because it's about a 35-hour drive to Friendship, Maine. They arrive the evening of October 9th, the night of the full moon. As they enter Whipstaff, James and Kat meet Casper. After a day at the races, the ghostly trio comes home. Armed with a vacuum cleaner, Dr. Harvey temporarily traps Casper's uncle.
Suck!
Come on, fat boy!
I'm gonna take you home to my private This sucks!
Who needs a proton pack when you've got a Hoover? The next morning, October 10th, Casper makes breakfast.
Tell him about the Twinkie.
What about the Twinkie?
He grabs several plates of Hostess snacks for the trio, including several Twinkies. Despite their appetite, the food goes right through them. We saw this with Slimer in Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. Kat goes to her first day at Marshwood Junior High. Her English class decides to invite the entire school to Whipstaff for the Halloween dance.
Mr. Curtis, check this. We're dead for the Halloween dance, right? This girl has a seriously creepy house with room to spare.
Meanwhile, Dr. Harvey has his first session with the ghostly trio. Turns out he went to Johns Hopkins.
Johns Hopkins University. Very impressive.
He went to Northwestern and Johns Hopkins. Is that good enough for you?
No, it's not.
Well, Brennan, those are very prestigious schools.
I smoked pot with Johnny Hopkins.
After school, Vic visits Kat at Whipstaff Manor to ask her to the dance. This is actually a ploy by Amber because according to Casper, all blondes are evil. That night, the friendly ghost abducts Kat against her will to go to a lighthouse. We see the moon is still quite full and the view is killer because, well, he almost killed her. Casper says he doesn't remember much of his previous life.
What were you like when you were alive?
I don't remember.
According to Ghostbusters classifications, he is likely a Class 3. Those are spirits with a distinct human form and personality, but their former identity is unclear. The next scene is the day of the Halloween dance. Considering Kat doesn't go to school, this is probably a few days later on Saturday, October 14th. After discussing the dance with her dad, Kat discovers the attic in Casper's old room. In a deleted scene, the script describes Dr. Harvey entering a room armed with a leaf blower. He looks like a homegrown Ghostbuster. The scene also explains that Dr. Harvey suggests they go to the bar to get the ghosts out of the house for the school dance. In another deleted scene, Casper reveals the ghostly trio are actually his biological uncles. While in the attic, Kat spots a photo of Whipstaff in its prime. She wipes dust off the glass and asks which one is Casper's dad. The photo has the trio, alive and well with Casper in a headlock. Casper replies, "Nah, those are my uncles. Can't you tell?" This explains why Kat discovers their room with their names carved in their beds.
Stretch. Fatso. And Stinky. Man, they had cool parents.
Kat and Casper then find a series of newspapers. The earliest headline says, "McFadden Youth Dies." The paper is dated July 10th, 1902, with an article titled, "Pneumonia Claimed Life of 11-Year-Old Boy." The paper is incongruent with Casper's age, which is later stated to be 12.
Cinderella wasn't 12 years old.
The year also doesn't make sense because Casper's treasure is a baseball signed by Duke Snider. He specifically mentions him playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Are you kidding? It's autographed by Duke Snider, the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Which was between 1947 and 1962, meaning the earliest Casper could have been born was in 1935. Still, Snider didn't come to prominence until 1949 when he helped usher the Dodgers into the World Series. However, the January date makes sense with Casper getting pneumonia while out sledding. In his father's plans for the Lazarus machine, we see one dated February 8th. The next headline stating mysterious activity at Whipstaff was printed on February 11th. By February 17th, the Friendship Daily News reported the McFadden laboratory was discovered, but claimed his resurrection machine was a hoax. On February 25th, another article from the Bangor Times talks about the inventor's last dream to recreate life. Finally, on February 26th, the article says, "Father invents resurrection machine to raise dead son." Kat finds a clipping saying prominent inventor J.T. McFadden declared legally insane.
McFadden claimed that he was haunted by the ghost of his dead son, and that he invented a machine to bring him back to life. The Lazarus.
Down in the lab, Kat and Casper ready the machine to resurrect him, which fails after Kerrigan and Dibbs pull out the primordial ooze required for resurrection.
Pull the lever. Pull the lever. Pull the lever, Crunk.
Kerrigan survives unscathed after falling out a window, but dies when she drives her car off a cliff. Likewise, Dr. Harvey dies falling down an open manhole cover. Kerrigan's ghost remembers her identity,
Miss Crittenden?
In the flesh.
indicating she might be a Class 4, but clearly doesn't remember all her previous life, despite just dying.
What are you doing? This is no time to shave.
Helping you, remember?
Remember what?
Dibbs is thrown out the window and presumably dies. A lot of people dying by falling. Kat and Casper then trick Kerrigan into crossing over when she realizes she no longer has unfinished business. The concept of a ghost crossing over into the afterlife isn't new, but Casper may have been the movie that coined the phrase unfinished business.
All ghosts have unfinished business. That's why they don't cross over.
1990's Ghost had Sam Wheat also journey to the other side after saving his girlfriend. The real Ghostbusters also didn't always trap the ghost. In Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Ghost, the spirit of Uncle Horace is haunting the Stewart mansion.
The best scenario is to let Horace disperse peacefully, but he can't, not until he finds what he's looking for.
Which he eventually does after telling his niece he loves her one last time. The episode also features a woman dancing with a ghost and being levitated.
Coincidence? I think not!
Another ghost, Casey Jones, appeared to be maliciously hijacking trains. In actuality, he was trying to save lives.
Everyone knows that some ghosts spend eternity trying to correct mistakes they made in life.
Well, Casey Jones was an engineer. He died in a train wreck, so I figured his ghost wouldn't rest until he'd set things right. By preventing a train wreck, he wanted to save someone's life, not take it.
Like Horace, he dissipated when he no longer had unfinished business. Both Ghostbusters Afterlife and Frozen Empire had similar situations. After finally stopping Gozer and saving his family, Egon Spangler's ghost crossed over. Melody directly references having unfinished business.
What's the worst part about being a ghost?
I'll be 16 for the rest of eternity.
Yikes. No matter what?
Unless I complete my unfinished business.
By the end of the film, Melody also crosses over. Casper and Frozen Empire also share a romance between a girl and a ghost. Kat and her father enter Casper's old house.
It's her. She's here. She's in my house. I did it. What if she likes me? What if she doesn't?
While Melody eventually enters Phoebe's room in the firehouse. Throughout the film, Phoebe wonders what it would be like to be a ghost.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a ghost?
Every day of my life, dear.
And Casper wishes he could be human.
If I were alive, would you go to the Halloween dance with me?
Both long to cross the threshold between life and death. Phoebe enters the ionic separator, allowing her spirit to be temporarily separated from her body.
And there is a way for me to be a ghost for a bit, but it's experimental.
On the other hand, Casper's father created a machine that can return ghosts to their mortal coil. When Dr. Harvey arrives at the lab as a ghost, they use the only capsule to return him from the dead. For this selfless act, Kat's mom allows Casper to become momentarily mortal. By coming back to life, Dr. Harvey is finally reunited with his wife, ending his unfinished business.
James, I know you've been searching for me, but there's something you have to understand. You and Kat loved me so well when I was alive that I have no unfinished business. Please don't let me be yours.
While Ghostbusters was originally mentioned in Casper, the Ghostbusters franchise has come full circle.
Casper?
And referenced the Friendly Ghost, even mirroring its motifs. So, is it canon?
No.
It doesn't contradict the other films and takes place after Ghostbusters the video game but before Afterlife. The trivia section of IMDb claims Dan Aykroyd confirmed Casper is canon, but I can't find any evidence of him actually asserting this. Despite if they take place in the same universe, the two franchises seem destined to be intricately connected. If you like this video and think we deserve it,
Are you sure we're not going a tad overboard here?
please subscribe. I'm Devin from Channeling Spirits, and thanks for watching. Okay, now go. Into the circle.
I miss you so much because I miss you.